I lived the same day over and over, until I noticed one small change. The insistent chirping of my alarm clock dragged me from sleep at precisely 6 a.m. Wednesday. Again. I slapped the snooze button, the familiar weight of dread settling in before I was even fully awake. It had been doing this for, well, I'd lost count. Days, maybe weeks. Every morning, the same alarm, the same sliver of sunlight through the blinds, the same feeling that I'd already lived this exact moment. I went through the motions of the morning, the lukewarm shower, the burnt toast, the same news headlines flickering on the kitchen TV. I walked to the bus stop, saw the same faces waiting, heard the same snippets of conversations. The bus arrived at the usual time, the same route, the same jerky stops and starts. My workday at the library unfolded with agonizing predictability. The same overdue book returned, the same elderly woman asking for the same author, the same quiet hum of the fluorescent lights. By the time I got back to my apartment, the exhaustion wasn't just from the day, it was from the relentless repetition. I made the same microwave dinner, watched the same inane reality show, and went to bed, knowing exactly what tomorrow, or rather, today, again, would bring. It had started subtly, a sense of déjà vu so strong it felt like a memory. Then, the small things, knowing the barista would misspell my name, predicting the traffic light sequence. Soon, I was living entire conversations before they happened, anticipating every phone call, every email. There was no variation, no surprise. Wednesday had become an infinite loop. I tried everything to break it. I stayed up all night, hoping Thursday would dawn. It didn't. I took a different route to work. I said outlandish things to strangers. I even skipped work entirely, wandering aimlessly through the city. Every time, I woke up to the same alarm, the same Wednesday morning. The initial novelty had long worn off, replaced by a crushing monotony. The joy in simple things had evaporated, overshadowed by the inescapable predictability of my existence. I felt like a character trapped in a broken record, forced to play out the same mundane script day after day. I started documenting everything, meticulously recording each event, each interaction, hoping to find a pattern, a trigger, anything that might explain this bizarre temporal prison. The lists grew longer, the details more precise, yet Wednesday remained stubbornly, infuriatingly Wednesday. Then, on what must have been my 70-something Wednesday, something shifted. It was small, almost imperceptible. As I walked to the bus stop, I noticed a flyer on a lamppost that hadn't been there before. It advertised a lost cat, a fluffy ginger tabby named Marmalade. Marmalade, that was the name of my childhood cat. I hadn't thought of her in years. The flyer was new, the colors bright, the paper crisp. It definitely hadn't been there yesterday, or rather, the day before, or the day before that. A tiny spark of something I hadn't felt in what seemed like an eternity flickered within me, hope. A change. Something was different. The rest of the day unfolded with the usual, soul-numbing predictability. The misspelled coffee, the overdue book, the elderly woman and her author. But the flyer stayed in my mind, a tiny crack in the seemingly impenetrable wall of Wednesday. The next Wednesday, the next iteration of the same day, I rushed to the lamppost. The flyer was gone. A wave of disappointment washed over me, quickly followed by a surge of renewed focus. If the flyer had appeared and then disappeared, that meant things could change. The loop wasn't absolute. I started paying closer attention, my senses heightened. I scrutinized every detail of my day, searching for other anomalies, other deviations from the established pattern. A different song playing on the radio, a new face in the crowd at the bus stop, a slight variation in the news headlines. They were fleeting, subtle, easily missed, but they were there. The world, or at least my small corner of it, wasn't frozen solid. It was glitching. The glitches were random, insignificant on their own, but together they suggested that the loop wasn't perfect, that there was a degree of fluctuation. This gave me a new purpose. Instead of trying to escape Wednesday, I would try to understand it, to track the changes, to see if they led anywhere. I started a new log, specifically documenting the variations. The color of a car that drove by, the headline on a discarded newspaper, the number of people wearing blue at the library. It was tedious, often frustrating, but it gave me something to focus on, a sense of agency in this repetitive existence. Weeks, or perhaps months, of meticulous observation followed. The glitches became more frequent, more noticeable. A different item on the coffee shop menu, a street performer I'd never seen before, a brief power outage at the library. It felt like the fabric of Wednesday was slowly unraveling. Then, one Wednesday morning, my alarm went off at 6:01 a.m. 1 minute late. It was a tiny difference, almost insignificant, but it sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. The loop was definitely breaking. The day that followed was subtly, wonderfully different. The barista spelled my name correctly. The overdue book was a genre I'd never seen before. The elderly woman asked for a different author. The glitches were no longer fleeting, they were altering the very fabric of the day. The lost cat flyer reappeared on the lamppost, this time slightly torn at the corner. The song on the radio was one I hadn't heard in years. A new bookstore had opened down the street. By the time I went to bed that night, the exhaustion was different. It was the good kind, the tiredness that comes after a day filled with new experiences, with the unexpected. The next morning, my alarm went off at 6:02 a.m. Thursday. The word echoed in my mind, a foreign yet beautiful sound. Sunlight streamed through the blinds, brighter, warmer than I remembered. The air felt different, lighter. I got out of bed, a sense of giddy anticipation bubbling within me. The toast still burnt, the news headlines were unfamiliar, but the world felt new. I walked to the bus stop, and while some faces were the same, there were new ones too, their conversations fresh and unknown. The bus took a slightly different route, the buildings looking subtly changed. My workday at the library was a whirlwind of new patrons, new books, new challenges. The quiet hum of the fluorescent lights felt almost exciting. The world had moved on. Wednesday was finally over, but the experience had changed me. I appreciated the small things in a way I never had before, the unexpected moments, the subtle variations that make each day unique. I had lived through an eternity of repetition, and the taste of novelty was intoxicating. I never forgot the lost cat flyer, the first crack in the endless Wednesday. It remained a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the most rigid of patterns, change is always possible, even if it starts with something as small as a ginger tabby named Marmalade. The loop had broken, not with a dramatic explosion, but with the slow, persistent accumulation of tiny differences, until the dam finally burst, and Thursday dawned, bringing with it the sweet, unpredictable chaos of a world in motion. The memory of endless Wednesdays served as a constant reminder to savor the present, to appreciate the fleeting beauty of each unique day, because even the most monotonous existence holds the potential for change, for a new dawn.